Murder, listening to this word often takes away our soul, knowing someone was killed ruthlessly, and that too in a place near you. While this word has such a deep impact on us, it's happening all around the world, and the stories we get to hear are just not easy to digest. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Crime Time. Today we are here about a true crime story that happened in room 348. So if you are curious to know, then keep watching. The story is about a guy called Greg Franklin, who kept a tidy home and traveled lightly. He used to use his rolling suitcase as a drawer in his hotel room after spending so many years traveling. He stayed in the room most nights. He would sit on the bed, leaning back on two pillows resting against the headboard, and turn on the air conditioner because he preferred a cool room at night. Greg was in room 348 of the MCM Elegante Hotel in Beaumont, Texas, on the evening of September 15, 2010, lounging, smoking, munching on a Reese's Crispy Crunchy bar, drinking root beer, and watching Iron Man 2. However, the conclusion eluded him. Greg was used to spending the evenings alone. He had spent months at sea while working as a chief engineer on ocean-going ships when he was a young man. In his middle age, he reinvented himself as a landman, a common profession in South Texas that facilitated the gas and oil industry's easier exploitation of mineral rights on private property. So one night, Greg received an email from his wife, Susie. To be precise, it was a Wednesday evening, shortly after 7 while he was watching his movie. Susie was submitting a tax extension request using a computer program. She informed him of her advancement, and he replied, "You're doing good, babe." Greg was dealt a very real and devastating blow out of nowhere during the loud, computer-generated showdown at the end of the movie, amid all the fake violence. A blow that would cause a man to become pain-blind. He was able to rise from the bed and make it to the door before falling with his face landing first and the legs spread wide. When his face landed on the green rug, he was probably already dead. Susie Flanagan, his wife, called Greg's office the next morning. You must be wondering why she didn't wait for him to call back. Well, every morning the husband and wife used to speak, but he hadn't called. He didn't pick up the phone. After Susie's call, two of his co-workers drove over to the hotel and knocked on his door after he failed to show up at the office. They asked the hotel manager to open it because there was no response. Their frantic calls for help brought the Beaumont police and an ambulance. A middle-aged man was discovered lying face down on the rug, doubled over with a spent cigarette delicately cupped between two stiff fingers of his left hand. Room 348 was overly warm and stuffy, and what took us by surprise was that Greg's skin tone had changed to a blue-gray hue. His blue pajamas had a damp spot at the crotch, but that wasn't unusual. A little more than an hour later, Detective Scott Apple arrived. He is a short, extremely fit man with graying hair that is styled in spikes and worn straight up. He's only a cop. His wife was a police officer. They were co-workers. He was one of the assault team captains for the SWAT team of the department. One of those guys who never stops working is. However, he didn't find much to be interesting here. No indication of an invasion or conflict. There was no noise in the space, no visible wounds or blood. The stack of bills in Flanagan's wallet was still in the back pocket of his jeans. The robbery wasn't an issue because Flanagan still had his wallet, which contained a stack of $100 bills, in the back pocket of his jeans. No noise had been heard by guests in nearby rooms. Apple asked the neighbors and informed them that it was most likely a natural causes thing. Sad. He prowled through Flanagan's bags, primarily searching for pills, possibly a hint as to why he had collapsed. There wasn't any. Later, Michael and Susie informed him that Greg had never visited a doctor. He was a stubbornly independent man who had low regard for authority and was unmoved by the current craze for fitness and health. He didn't work out. He had been a chain smoker for all of his adult life, and it showed in his persistent cough. He did both freely, not overindulging in either food or drink. It was simple to assume that his actions had simply come back to haunt him. So for a guy with all these characteristics, it seems possible that he died a sudden natural death, and his wife Susie was ready to accept it as true. Although she was horrified and inconsolable, she conceded that it was possible for Greg to pass away suddenly. She even found some solace in it. This guy really wanted to die a sudden death, because his wife often heard him say, "Lucky bastard," in response to hearing of someone's sudden death. But what do you think? Was it a natural death or a murder? Things started to get clear when Dr. Brown stepped in to conduct a post-mortem. His body's narrative became more captivating. Significant internal damage and a surprising amount of blood were found when Brown opened the front of the torso. He had had some partially digested food torn from his intestines. There were also minor wounds on the stomach and liver, 2 broken ribs, and a hole in the right atrium of his heart, which the doctor also discovered. Flanagan had either been crushed to death or had severe trauma to his internal organs, which were in poor condition. Brown came to the conclusion that a hard kick was probably what caused the wound to his genitalia. Additionally, he had received a chest blow that was so severe it could have been fatal. Within 30 seconds, he would have bled to death, so Brown wrote homicide next to manner of death on the official form. Detective Apple called Brown as soon as he learned this startling information to provide an explanation. The physician informed him that the man in 348 had sustained the kind of severe internal wounds he was more accustomed to observing in accident victims or in people discovered buried beneath a large, recently fallen object. How is it possible to beat a man so hard that his heart bursts, his internal organs tear, and his ribs crack, all without doing much to his torso? Flanagan's outer body showed no signs of a beating aside from the bruises and the cut at his crotch. And how could there have been such a rumble in the hotel room without anything falling over or even being stirred? Without the adjacent rooms being disturbed? They started by looking over everything in room 348, including the walls, furniture, and floor. Working on their hands and knees, they were both illuminating furniture with flashlights. Nothing was discovered. Brennan became frustrated because he was now certain that a gun had been used in some way. When he noticed a divot in the wall next to the closed door leading into the adjacent room, they were about to give up. The indentation needed to be repaired. It appeared to be exactly where the door handle would contact the wall, usual wear and tear in hotel rooms. The knob in the dent, however, didn't quite line up when he swung the door open. The doorknob's right side barely made contact with the wall. Brennan was standing next to a neat little hole in the wall that had been filled in with dried toothpaste instead of the expected pink filler. He walked back to 348 and measured the indentation after measuring its height against his hip. They formed a row. The wall had been breached by a bullet. Its entrance was marked by a small, clean hole in 349 and its exit by a larger hole in 348. The crime scene investigators in Beaumont carefully dug both holes and ran a laser through them. Greg had been sitting on the bed, smoking, gorging on candy, and watching his movie when the trajectory pointed directly up to the bed. This guy was shot. Story continues. We hear crimes like every other day, but this case was a hard one, and we are pleased to know that justice has been served. So that is all the time we had today, folks. Hope you enjoyed this video. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel Crime Time, and to hit the bell icon on your way out. See you all next time, folks.